Rugby union participation in the UK is on a downward spiral, and this is something I want to look more into. Although 2023 saw a 4-year high in participation, over the last decade numbers have dropped significantly. Whether that is because of declining youth participation, which is due to competition from other sports, or due to the stigma of rugby being a brutal sport played by those in higher socio-economic groups. To figure out what needs to be done to change these participation trends, I took a trip to a local rugby club of mine, Old Richards RFC, and I also spoke to a Gloucester Rugby Academy coach on what needs to be done to change these trends.
That just hit me as he nearly has 2 ribs dislodged.
2 by the referee, but it was offside. You can see the hard press. Not a huge shot coming in from the French lock.
I think there's an element of parents will see rugby as a brutal sport where they don't want young kids getting involved in that, but there's been a lot of progression for safety for players, especially at younger levels.
I am an academy coach within the Gloucester Rugby Foundation phase. I work to develop the under-15s and under-16 players at the Cheltenham North site, and basically my career has led up to here from previously being a player, and I had to stop playing because of injury, and I looked for ways to stay involved in the game. And whilst I was at university, I tried my hand at coaching and eventually turned into more of a full-time paid venture.
In his role as a youth coach, Lewis has seen a drastic drop in numbers of people participating in rugby union, especially at the younger levels as they join secondary school. I wanted to know if he believes the stigma still exists about rugby being a brutal sport, and how important is it that we reduce this for the future of the game?
Massively, and I think even more so with this emerging evidence that there is that link between long-term brain injury and rugby union participation. I think it's a massive consideration for kids getting into the sport now. Parents have a lot of reservations when it comes to allowing their kids to play rugby that maybe we didn't see a few years ago before there was this link. And I think it's definitely something that's contributed to the decline in participation, particularly at a school level where kids that maybe don't want to pursue rugby outside of school, they try it as part of the curriculum. Now kids are more reserved in trying that because they know that link between the injury.
I quite like to see the youth teams develop a bit better for upcoming teams. I mean, at the moment, I think we've only got a brief under-15s and then a very, very young sort of under-10s or so. There isn't many young sort of kids coming through the system, and when they are, they're normally getting pulled together at other clubs, and there's lots of players, sort of 20, 30 plus players at one club and nothing at another. And I quite like to see a difference in spreading that about and maybe more effort put into each club at a younger level.
A lack of youth participation isn't the only reason why rugby union numbers have been falling in recent years. One key factor is the lack of funding that the smaller clubs receive. In England, over the last 5 years, we've seen the folding of 3 professional clubs, from Worcester Warriors, London Irish and the 6-time Premiership champions Wasps. With the lack of funding being passed down to these grassroots sides, it is no surprise that numbers are falling. Grassroots clubs are having to create new ways of funding to keep themselves afloat.
I think a big part of what we earn money here especially is sort of with fundraising. We have to do a lot of it on our own. We don't really get much support directly from RFU or likewise setups. But we do a lot of fundraising at our place, but that's done on our own back. There isn't necessarily like an input from anywhere else externally. We do quite a lot at our club where we rent out rooms for birthday parties or wakes and things like that.
I think unfortunately, like most things, it does require money. It requires that funding from the top. From an academy perspective, without that money, without that funding, we can't take on half the kids that we normally would. And it's been really good to see that increase in funding in recent years. But I think really pushing that from the top down level, really emphasising grassroots and growing things from the bottom, pumping money into that to be able to grow our facilities, grow our coaches and grow the amount of players that we can keep on board is really positive about keeping players involved and then nurturing those players to eventually all the way up to the international.
It's a decent pass and Rob Shaw finds Brown on a terrific angle and the English fullback is away and Brown back inside and Kerr and Ireland are going to be stretched and England are going to score. Semmelwanger, quick hit, Reed inside and back it goes to Bowden Barrett, heartbreak.
Sort of the way that the world's working in social media is, I think it needs to get sort of broadcasted more, that it is a really nice sport to get involved in. It, as much as it can be brutal at times on the pitch, but when you come off the pitch, it is a really nice gentleman's sport, and I think there's a lot to learn with that. It's not just a load of players hitting each other for 80 minutes, it's you shake hands and you respect each other at the end of the day.